Hey folks, I'm Matt. Welcome to the lab. This video is the first in a series where we're going to develop an unmanned aerial system. And while the focus of the series was really going to be on the engineering, the problem solving, the design decisions that go into the project, I'll definitely include the build sequences, any side projects it takes me on, and with some luck, glorious flight test footage. So let's get to it. Our objective in this video is to define the use case, which is the real world need we're trying to fulfill with the aircraft. And depending on who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, that use case can vary widely. Right? So on the one hand, if you're a hobbyist, maybe you have a need for something fun to fly around the park. On the other hand, if you're a gigantic logistics company, maybe you have a need for an unmanned freighter that can haul cargo around the world without a flight crew. And both of those are perfectly valid use cases, but they're going to generate wildly different aircraft. So let's take a look at some background info to help build our use case. Since well before COVID-19, the US has been in the grips of a deadly epidemic. Opioid use and abuse has risen dramatically over the last couple of decades. What started with prescription medications led to a surge in heroin use, and over the last several years, dangerously powerful synthetic opioids like fentanyl have flooded the market, and the results have been devastating. Opioid overdose deaths have skyrocketed in this time, and in 2019 took the lives of almost 50,000 Americans. Putting that in context, every year we're now losing more Americans to overdose than we did in the entire Vietnam War. Now, substance abuse and addiction are big, complex problems, so getting to the root causes has to be a national priority for our public health policy. But in the acute emergency situation of an opioid overdose, thankfully, there's an incredible medication called naloxone that's able to save lives by reversing the course of that OD. It's even been packaged as a nasal spray called Narcan that's so easy to use, non-medical professionals can administer it. And there's a huge opportunity here to save lives. But the challenge can be timing. If these medications are going to be effective, they have to be administered quickly. So when someone's overdosing, every second counts. In urban areas, there's a lot of opportunity to identify someone experiencing an overdose and to provide rapid medical intervention. And because of that, many first responders are now being equipped with naloxone. Some cities even have programs to provide free Narcan and training to ordinary citizens. And while there's a lot of work to be done here, you can see how these efforts could become ubiquitous and highly effective. Rural areas have some key differences that lead to real challenges. Population density is lower, everything's more spread out, and emergency services are often spread thin. One study found that EMS response times are more than twice as long in rural areas, with 1 of 10 encounters taking at least a half an hour to arrive on scene. And with many rural hospitals at risk of closure, this problem's only going to get worse. So here we are. This is our use case. We want to improve on rural EMS response times to opioid overdoses with Narcan delivery drones. And I'm not suggesting this is a particularly novel concept. All sorts of aerospace companies are working on delivery drones right now, and there's a fortune to be made in that emerging sector. But with our focused, specific mission, we could use drone technology to help people and maybe even save lives. Now that we have our use case defined, next time we can get to the very important business of naming our aircraft program, sorting out the concept of operations or the ConOps for these missions, and planning out our approach to the project. Before I finish up, just one last thing. If you or someone you know is struggling with substance abuse, there are people who can help. For example, the SAMHSA National Helpline is a free, confidential resource available 24/7, 365, offering treatment referral and information. And you can call them at 1-800-662-HELP. I've also included their website in the notes below. That does it for part 1. I'll be back soon in part 2. Until then, be safe.